Hey guys, so for today's video, I'm going to be touching on something that is a little different, a little more personal to me, and that is about kind of my experiences growing up as an NI-DOM, INFJ to be exact, in an Asian country, and also touching on like this overall invisibility of intuitives in like an Asian culture and environments, and I'm referring to more of like contemporary Asian culture because in like it's not referring to Asian culture as a whole. Because if you know Asian history, it's very long, and Chinese history in particular, there has been periods of time where you know intuitives or just people who are like more on a artistic creative side in general are very, very, very prized in society. So, not talking about those times, talking about modern times. Um, how my experiences have been, and also like this general like a representation of intuitives and just people, how it affects people's reactions to us. I know it's odd to hear like a representation and MBTI in the same sentence because usually it's referring to, some other demographics related to race and so on. But yeah, but I think it's very underrated. Like this problem of, diversity of personality is often like overlooked, and that and also the diversity of thought, like these two diversities are so important and innate to us as people, regardless of who you are or what skin color and so on. And I just want to talk about it since not many people are talking about it. So, to get started, like how I grew up, I think when people are younger, I don't know if this is just me, but I felt like when I was younger, I had both like sensing and intuitive sides, and it wasn't really like a problem. Like, I don't think my parents really had a problem with it because it's not like obvious to the society that, um, but I think once I start growing older, the differences start to show up a lot more. But even as kids, I was actually quite a ambivert kid, if you use that term. I was confusing to a lot of people because I would talk like an adult. Like a lot of people say I talk like an adult because I had very loud opinions about not really about like the world or anything, but just the way I talk. I like to talk with older people, and I also was kind of obnoxious. Even though I was an introvert as well, like I'm more obnoxious when I'm with family members, and less obnoxious when I'm with like people I don't know, if that makes sense. I think INFJs, we all have our ESTP side. It's just depends on where we show it, And for me, when I was young, I was definitely both. I had both those elements. Like when I'm in a crowd of people, I tend to be more quiet, but when I'm with like my family, when I'm with my very close group of friends, I tend to be very loud and also very talkative. And I definitely had a very sensitive side to me even as a young kid. I would watch this like dramas and be very, very emotionally impacted by some of their plots. And I remember like that was quite unusual as a kid, but I was very, very sensitive towards developments in the drama, and I had this overview of the character's life, especially towards the end. I think usually dramas when they end, um, they can end on very touching notes or on a very grand, almost like giving you a perspective on life kind of note. And I would feel a lot of emotional impact, and I would, have dreams about it. I would talk about it. Yeah, it was just I still remember some of these storylines in like even after 20 years. I'm pretty sure I watched it when I was in kindergarten. So I definitely had a lot more emotional impact from these dramas. Even as a kid, I liked watching shows with a bit of depth to it, like shows where it shows people's good and evil sides, and how some people would reform and some people never did, and how kind of life changed them, and they had to overcome a lot of things. And it's just very almost like there is some kind of, I don't know, like macro view on life experiences kind of drama, which is very unusual for a kindergarten kid to enjoy, but I did. And I also really enjoy like period dramas. Just I love shows about different time periods. My experience as a kid was actually pretty okay. Like I wasn't discriminated for being an idol or anything. I mean, fast forward, I think when I'm in like primary school or elementary school, wherever you are, um, I began to notice some differences. So I was definitely not the kind of very uh, outgoing kid. I wasn't someone who really cared about having a very huge group of friends. I like having just a close group of friends by my side where I can be my true self and very loud and talkative self. But when I'm with a group of people, I definitely felt like there are a lot of people who couldn't really understand where I was coming from, and I had no idea how to really make out of that. Like, I don't really know why. But still, I had two best friends, and actually looking back, I believe they are probably of the NTP type, but I could be wrong because it has been many years. And back then, it's a little harder to tell because you're all children, but I do see that definitely there are some like intuitive side to them that I somehow subconsciously sensed and became friends with them. Um, but I think the difference with me and just I guess, the more sensing dominated society, um, or just the fact that there are more senses than intuitives in terms of numbers, that began to be more obvious in towards like when I was 11 or 12. When I realized that my hobbies are very different from people around me. Like there were a lot of people who were already into like celebrities and into just the entertainment news and all that, and I realized that I wasn't really into that. I mean, I think intuitives kind of develop backwards because intuitives develop their sensing side later in life. So it's not that I don't care about celebrity news at all. It's just that I just didn't know. I wasn't aware of like those things. I wasn't interested until at a later age. I mean, it's not like the center of my life ever, but I did get like at least more familiar with it at a later age. But when I was younger, I would wonder like why is it that a lot of people are suddenly extremely into celebrity news and celebrities in general, and I had no idea. It's not that I'm not interested, it's just that I happen to have very different hobbies. um, I really liked reading from a very young age, and every time during the school holidays I would be going to the library to get books that I like, and I still remember the kind of books that I like to read. I remember I like to read Marvin Red Post. um, Amazing book. But by the way, I think that author might be INFJ, but I could be wrong. And what else? Marvin Ray Post and some other just books that are very it kind of like is deep but written in a children's book way. That was my primary school favorite. But anyway, as I grew older, obviously I began reading novels, I began reading like fiction, and either that or I was just outside having fun doing some kind of, like exercises, I guess, like badminton and stuff. But I was never really into celebrity stuff, but a lot of people around me were, and so I felt like there was already a disconnect, and I couldn't really talk about those things with them because I don't know enough. And I also didn't have like the latest gadgets. I didn't have the latest songs. I had no idea about what was the trending, songwriter. I mean, like artists or whoever. And so I felt like there was a very huge divide already, and because there were a lot of ESFJs and ESTJs in the society that I grew up in, I felt like they didn't really know what was going on with me, and I also felt like I couldn't really connect with them. So I just felt very confused because I would say things that I thought was friendly towards them, and sometimes it gets misinterpreted in like the worst way possible. And then I'm like, okay then. And I also felt like, I don't know what, I think when we're younger we tend to be more not so nice to people who are different from us, and I think it could go both ways, definitely, for both INJs and ESJs. But ESJs tend to be a little more, not a little, actually a lot more, I would say they are more prominent in the social circles. They are more strong in terms of their social power. And so I feel like I was kind of almost like scared of them. I wouldn't say like scared, but just not very comfortable when I see them, because I feel like they have the potential to, do things with that amount of social circle that they have. And so usually I don't really have a lot of things in common with them, so I don't really end up talking with them. I ended up having my own group of friends, and I did tend to notice that I was more okay with SP types, but even then I felt a bit daunted by them. Only with certain SP types I'm more okay with, but it was more like, okay, I see them as fun individuals, but I'm also very intimidated because extroverted sensing to me is very foreign at that age, especially. And I think towards the more high school age, I began to realize that the difference is even larger, because I would be interested in a lot of very either humanities related stuff or things of a more, I guess you can say, intellectual. Yeah, like I'm interested in like geopolitics, I'm interested in like history, literature, and all that. And not everyone can obviously relate to that. And actually very few people could, because I was like very, very into it in a way that a lot of people are not. They're just not that interested. Or they are like doing it to pass the exams, but they're not like actually interested in it, like as a hobby, but I am. So, but fortunately for me, at that age, even though I was still surrounded by a lot of ESTJs and ESFJs, which actually made me feel like there was something wrong with me. I actually thought that was something wrong with me, because there were so many people who would have this like ESJ lifestyle where they would hang out with huge groups of friends and just do things. And I actually wanted to do that too, but I just didn't find enough people with like the same, I guess, interests and the same like, just, I don't know, just the same idea of fun, I guess. So I didn't hang out in like huge groups, and then I wondered like, is that something wrong with me? Is it like, so are you supposed to be doing that because you're a teenager and you're supposed to be like doing what teenagers do? And fortunately for me, I found outlets for all the interests that I had in like the humanities classes, where I would often be contributing a lot in class, and the teachers were very fond of me usually, and it tends to be always the history teachers or the English teachers who are more fond of me, whereas the other teachers are like, whatever, you know. I mean, they're okay with me, but I think generally speaking, humanities teachers tend to like me more, whereas the more traditional teachers tend to find me a little, I don't know, they don't like me questioning things in class and stuff. So yeah, it was more of a mixed situation when it comes to education. But definitely when it comes to relating to peers, I felt like even with the outlet of humanities and having teachers to give me support and encouragement, I still felt like it was very different from my peers. And that had a very huge impact on me, because I felt like at that time I didn't know anything about MBTI, and I didn't know anything about Enneagram either. There's nothing about those tests, and I felt like, is it like just me? I'm wondering whether is it something within my personality that is not good enough, and that was obviously not really the right question to ask, because now that I know about diversity, now that I know about, you know, people actually have a lot of different things to contribute, and difference is actually a good thing. Because if you have everyone the same, then there's almost like no point, you know. It's like, what's the fun in it when the whole society is just made up of the same group of people? You cannot progress, right? But back then I didn't know that, so I felt like, firstly, I didn't really also relate to certain ideas of fun that a more, I guess, ESJ style would be, because there's a lot of this structural fun. Basically, they would kind of make up a lot of activities, school activities, and you almost have to participate in order to seem like you are having fun. And I never really bought into that idea, because I'm more of a free spirited, I would say, like free and easy person. I would go for events that I like to go, and I would not go for events that I don't like to go. So I don't like someone just telling me, oh, you have to go for this in order to seem like you are sociable and part of us. And I don't like that, because I mean, there are certain events that I just don't like going to. And it's not like, it's nothing personal, I just don't like going to. I don't like people forcing harmony on me, and I don't like people telling me what to do. And if you know, INFJs are actually pretty anti-authority. In that way, we just like to do things our own way. And so that definitely had a bit of clash with like the more, I guess, the social norms. And to top it off, I realized that there is actually no like Asian representation when it comes to intuitives. For some reason, in a lot of the mainstream like shows, like popular shows, I don't see any intuitives. So it's like, even though I didn't know anything about intuitives as a word, but like you would kind of recognize if someone has a similar personality as you on screen. But I never saw any character who is Asian and of my personality. And that was very confusing to me, because I feel like, you know, do people like me even exist? Like, I don't see them anywhere on the shows. I mean, I had a few friends who are not the same personality, maybe INFP, I think, and also in INTP, I'm not sure, but basically two other IN types. And I just felt like I didn't really know what to make of it, because I didn't really see us on those representation, and I felt confused, like, what's my identity, you know, coming of age stuff. And then later on, when I actually went to I went to the States for college for 4 years, and I just realized that there is quite a huge difference in terms of the acceptance of intuitives in the West and in Asia, at least from my experience, because I think even though INFJs are still very rare in the West, I don't think I've ever actually met an INFJ um, on a regular basis. I don't really meet a lot of NI type INFJs. I do meet a lot of EN types though, and I think EN types are more represented than IN types in general. But I do see a huge difference in the way that intuitives are being treated in the West versus in Asia. I think in the West, intuitives in general is not really as invisible. Like, you see a lot of bookstores everywhere on the streets, and people just sometimes selling their secondhand books. And I think generally people are very aware of this like intuitive stuff. Even as a sensor in the West, I think they are more open to intuitives. They are more open to just intuitive ideas. But obviously that changed when you grow older. I think a lot of Asian sensors, when they grow older, they also start to develop their intuitive sides, and so that balances people out. But I do see, like, as a society, like on a societal level, there is just more acceptance of intuitives in the West because there's so many films and arts and literature of characters that are intuitives. Like I grew up watching, I had to watch Gilmore Girls and Freaks and Geeks to get my representation because I couldn't find it in Asia. I mean, link down below and let me know if you know of any Asian characters that are intuitives, by the way, because I would love to see that more often. And I think that there is also a tendency for a lot of Asian intuitives to kind of try to fit in by almost worshipping sensors. I mean, that sounds really sad, but obviously not every intuitive does that. Personally, I'm not a fan of either extremes, like worshipping sensors or denouncing all sensors. Even though I don't get along with a lot of ESJs because of a personality difference, I don't really hate on all of them because there are genuinely ESJs who have been very nice to me despite our personality differences, and that's very touching. But generally, I do see some people worshipping sensing qualities, trying to sound like they're dumb and trying to play it down. I mean, I understand that when you're trying to communicate with people, you don't want to seem overwhelming. But at the same time, I feel like if you are actively trying to hide yourself, then it's sad. Okay, my computer almost just died. So, yeah, so I think generally the problem is more of intuitives in Asia having to learn that we are here, like we exist, and there's really nothing wrong with us. It's just a different personality. We develop our sensing qualities later in life, and now I'm more of a well-rounded person, I would say. And I just want more people to recognize that, when you talk about diversity, it's a lot more than just race. There's also a lot of personality differences, a lot of differences in the way we think, and a lot of different perspectives. And, we have to really recognize that in order to not force things on people. I think that, personality difference can be very, very alienating. Especially when you have a group of sensors who have no intuitive understanding and intuitives with no sensing understanding. So I think at the end of the day, it's about balance, right? I mean, I'm not advocating that intuitives only hang out with intuitives because then you're never going to develop your weaker side, but I don't think it's a good idea for sensors to also only hang out with sensors because then there are a lot of things that intuitives can give. And the only reason for this misunderstanding is because people don't really see us like as people who exist. I don't know, it sounds very crazy, but I'm pretty sure there are actually a lot of senses out there who may never have interacted with an intuitive, or maybe just less interactions, and because of the shows they watch, they have not really seen a lot of intuitive representation, and so they're not aware. But overall, I just want to say that has been my experience, and I want to just use it to bring light to the intuitive experience in Asia, and how, we shouldn't be erased. We are here. There are people who care more about things that are abstract and symbolic and all that, and not so much on the sensory experience until maybe later in life or when they balance it out. But we also share the space. Like we also deserve the same amount of respect and understanding. And people, I think times are shifting. Definitely, I see a lot of like emerging writers and filmmakers in Asia, so that's encouraging. But definitely, there's a lot of gaps to be filled. And in the next video, I will actually be doing a collab with another Asian INFJ who is going to talk about her experience. She grew up in America with an immigrant family. So I look forward to seeing you, and bye.